Welcome, everyone. You probably noticed I took the night off last night. It was well needed and much appreciated. So, anyways, back to it today. We had a massively big rainstorm over the past couple hours, and I didn't know if it was gonna knock out the power like it does sometimes. Ford does not sponsor this channel, but probably should. No ice storms. It's warm out actually, but yeah, I mean really crazy heavy rain. Um, anyways, I used to wear a hat all the time, and then I stopped wearing them all the time. Everybody would always say, "You always wear hats," and I did. I don't know why. And all of a sudden I stopped. I know. Snow to the high 60s, right? It's crazy. It's I was just looking, the kids have to make up 2 days of school because they missed 3 days last week. So they were out Monday for Martin Luther King Day. And then they had 3 snow days. So yeah, I put the hat on. It was out. I was taking the dogs out and everything got soaked. So that's why my hair is all messed up right now. I got drenched. Um, anyways, even the hat is black. Actually, the hat's dark blue, but yeah, but it pretty much looks. I guess it looks pretty black. Maybe it is black. I definitely have hat head right now. So. Um, So I'm curious here because I was talking with someone earlier today, and and Tyler, do you ever venture near Smoke Rise? I do venture out in that area. Where's your friend live? I go to Starbucks up in that area. Well, up in Tucker, really. There's a few different Starbucks I go to. There's two in Tucker. One where I did the where I did the 5-hour live stream that was actually only 4 hours, but they chased me out by starting to play some UMG music. Anyways, but you're both in Dunwoody. He lives near Smoke Rise. You work in Norcross. Wow, that's close. That's on my side of town. I mean, I don't live that far from Dunwoody either, but I was actually in I was close to Dunwoody today. I bought a new guitar today, which I was a minute or two late coming on because I was restringing it. This is a new jazz guitar. Whoops. It's an Eastman jazz guitar. That's a company that makes, they make really good mandolins. I have one of their mandolins. And this is a good guitar for practicing. And I don't have a jazz guitar. I didn't have a jazz guitar until today, and it's got P90 pickup in it. So I needed something in a pinch. People were complaining about the buzzing of my other two guitars. And honestly, I was complaining about it. I did that video yesterday on spread triads, and it was just unbearable for some people. Someone wrote in the comments, "Send me your guitar, I'll fix it for you and send it back." So what's up, Amy? The Beators, there you go. Anyway, so I have a jazz guitar now. So now Amy and I can jam. All I gotta do is practice it. Start practicing it. Amy, I was talking about you earlier. I was talking about you. I was talking to a friend of mine about their YouTube channel, and like egg beaters. There you go. Amy? What do you call? What are your peeps called? What do you call your community? Anyways, so one of the things was that I was I didn't want to. I'm going to finish the story about the guitar. So I was thinking too that you have the NAMM show going on this week, and I don't want to be calling companies and getting the king. I don't want to call companies and try and get the Nolties. Is that true? Andre, that's great. The blue Nolties. There you go. Yeah, I'm not coming to NAMM. I don't want to be beholden to any company, any particular maker, just to get something for free. Where I feel like I'm like I've got to play their stuff and say nice things about it. So I want to feel like if I don't like it, I can sell it. And with guitars, it's Den A, are you my oldest subscriber? Not by a long shot. Peter Smart, 87, is definitely the oldest subscriber. Anyway, so wait, I want to go back to this thing about YouTube channels. So I was thinking about this. What makes a successful YouTube channel? And I think I have it boiled down to 4 different things. And I was talking about you, Amy, in regards to this. And you have to either do outrageous things, inform people on something, be interesting to watch, or be a great storyteller. Now, wait. The first is you have to be able to either do the impossible. That's why you see people that have these guitar shredders that have big channels, things like that. But that's a limited base, though. That's probably 50,000 people you can get to with being a guitar shredder. You can be, tell interesting stories, or show people what it's like to be wealthy. Exactly. Casey Neistat, think about it. What's his biggest video? The $21,000 plane ride. Well, because he's doing things that other people can't do because they don't have the money to do that. And it's not all male. There's plenty of YouTubers that are female that have massively big followings. So Casey does a couple different things. He kind of checks a couple different boxes. He makes really great looking videos. He tells interesting stories to some people, apparently not to some of the people here. And he's not a particularly good looking guy. But he has a narrative to each video. And he has an incredibly consistent look to his videos. And the thing where he does things that other people can't do because he's got tons of money. So then you have your people that inform people, like Amy and myself. I mean, that's kind of our thing. I'm not a shredder guitar player. And I don't know if you really have shredding piano or anything. It's not the same kind of thing. It's not like guitar players that play with really aggressive sounds and things like that. Keyboards are not like that, and I certainly don't do stuff like that. But like this guy Stevie T that does these hilarious videos on Gent that there's plenty of people that they don't have to do things Shredding does matter in 2018, actually. It actually does. I mean, it matters up to about 100,000 people or so, maybe 150,000. So, that interesting to watch, I would put him in the interesting to watch category. He makes completely funny, weirdo videos. But you have to have one of those things, really. You have to have one of those things. Do the impossible. That's the other thing. I mean, you can get, I don't know, you see some of these channels where these guys will slingshot themselves, 100 yards or whatever and land in the water, whatever. Whatever it may be. There's some really crazy, I guess that would be under the prank channels. So anyways, that was my point that I was telling a friend of mine who has a YouTube channel that about how he needs to pick something and do it well. I mean, Amy, when she started her channel, immediately right off the bat started getting subscribers because Amy is incredibly interesting to watch and has all this amazing content. And that's ultimately what you want. I mean, that's like when I'm looking at a YouTube channel, I want, when I have limited time, I want to go there and I want to, opening kids' toys. That's true. When I have limited time, I want to pick something up. When Amy's doing things about, I mean, Amy did some really unique videos, right in the beginning of her channel too. There's one time she was at, I think, her folks' house or something, and she was in the backyard and doing the bebop dominant scale, and singing it. She didn't have an instrument or anything. She was singing lines and talking about it. And it was so interesting to watch and informative. And she didn't even need an instrument because Amy is really engaging. So, that's a big thing. And I knew Amy is a great storyteller. I knew that when I first saw her on Periscope, I said she can be incredibly successful on this. And I knew when she started her YouTube channel that it would be successful because she's incredibly engaging. She can play any tune you name, but she's just so interesting to watch. And that is really the key. I mean, I think that's honestly one of the most important things. Andrew Hong, who's a music producer, he's got a great YouTube channel. His videos are really well edited. They're really interesting. I enjoy his videos. Adam Neely, I love Adam's videos because they're super interesting to watch, and I like his delivery of it, and he's very funny, and he's great on camera, and that's, that I think that's the first thing that's the kind of the first hump that you get over that you need to do is you have to be great on camera. And this friend of mine, thank you, Amy. I appreciate that, but it's all these people here that are, and Amy, it's because you've been on my channel multiple times. That's why my channel's done well. I think that being able to talk to the camera and make people feel like you're talking to them is probably one of the most important things. And another thing that Amy does that very few YouTubers do is that Amy is great live. And that's one thing that she and I did both. We did it on Facebook. Then she did it on Periscope first, and I was a dismal failure on Periscope. She was very successful on Periscope. And Amy was the first person that taught me what bots are. She's like, "Oh, these are bots here or something." I said, "What are you talking about, bots?" Anyways, she's like, "Oh, Twitter's full of bots," and I had no idea what she was talking about. This is like 2014 or whenever it was, 2015. So, but Amy's great on video, making videos, but she's great live, and that's really hard to do. I think that that the people that can do that have a distinct advantage, and it's I think it's being able to talk to people, making them feel like you're connecting with them, and actually connecting with them, answering their questions, for example. I mean, Amy's thing is when she looks at the camera, you feel like she's just talking to you, and then she does talk to people. And the thing that amazed me about her Periscope is she always knew all the people that were on there, even the all the weird named people. She always knew those. So I think that's Martin. Yes, I'm talking about Amy Nolte, who is on here. Anyway, so that was my advice to my friend about his YouTube channel. You got to have the musicianship too, Brett. Well, I mean, for this kind of a channel, yes, absolutely. Tom, all you feel like you're hanging out at your house. Exactly. So, so that's it. So I want to remind you guys, and Amy, I don't know if you know this, I've got a new forum up called the Beato Music Forum, but it's just a forum. It's like Gear Sluts or anything like that, where you just go and, you can post things, any types of, questions to people or any topics you want to talk about, or if you want to talk about a gig, or you've got a new, you have a video out, anything you want, Amy, you can put up a post, and everyone knows you over there. We just started it last week, and we've got, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred people have joined the forum already, and people are posting constantly on it. Forum.rickbeato.com. Make fun of me, exactly. Put the forum link in the description. Yes, Joe, that's right. No, the word, I was talking about Gear Sluts. Amy, you know Gear Sluts, right? That talks about gear. It's one of the biggest forums. I was curious if there's any keyboard forums or if there's any guitar forums that people go to. Does anyone know of anything like that? Because forums are kind of old school, but I think they're really cool. I mean, basically Reddit is a forum. That's that's what it is. I missed Amy's joke. Hold on. Oh, I can't find it now. Andy Sneap forums. Andy's a producer in England. Talk bass is great for bass players. Okay, cool. There's Mr. Pat Ryan for everybody. What's up, John? Good to see you. No, it's not part of the URL. Okay, there it is. Chapman Stick has a forum. It's tiny. Dundo, your music teacher from high school committed suicide. Oh, brother. Committed suicide yesterday. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible. Man. Huh. Is there any chance that you can sit in on Dylan's next oboe lesson? Well, his next oboe lesson is on Saturday. I got to get to know his teacher a little bit more. She's really cool, but I'm not sure that be like, hey, Liz, you mind if I put this on the internet? Dylan probably wouldn't like it too much. Anybody remembers a dial-up BBS for the 80s and 90s? What is that? Dial-up What, modem? What are you talking about? I don't know. Slayer is ending. Okay. You wouldn't do that to Dylan. Ray. Okay. Yeah, I probably won't do that to Dylan. He's Dundo, really, really sorry to hear that. I mean, it's really, um, I've been through it with friends of mine, and it's actually, and I mean, it's just one of the most awful things. My old partner Johnny took his own life back in 2011, and I talked to him the morning of that it happened. Talked to him for 15 minutes and had a completely normal conversation with him. Had no idea, and I heard the news at at 5:30 in the afternoon, and I didn't believe it. A mutual friend of ours called and told me. I said, no, it's not possible. I talked to Johnny this morning. 15 minutes, nothing, Anyways, so I talked to my Aunt Penny last night. That was on the other night. She might be watching right now. And she was talking about one of her best friends that she hadn't talked to in 57 years or so, who is an oboist. And we were talking about how many spots there are in professional orchestras. We talked about this the other night, for particular instruments. And there are so few opportunities for people, since people never retire from these orchestras. They had the guy at the music store that I bought this guitar from today reminded me of there's a bassist in, I want to say, the Atlanta Symphony that died on stage. I think it was the Atlanta Symphony that had been in the orchestra for I don't know how many years. And I mean, that is really, that's pretty much the only way that people leave these gigs. They keep them. You can keep a gig if you can still play. You can stay in an orchestra for 50 years, no problem. You could look at any, you look at the Berlin Philharmonic or any of these big orchestras. You see some really old people, and those are positions that don't go to anywhere else and to anyone else. And that's a tough. You can go to Curtis. You can go to Juilliard, you can go to New England Conservatory, you can go to Berkeley, doesn't matter. If there's not an opening, you can be the best player on your instrument in the world, best cellist, best violinist, whatever. If there's not a position open, it's impossible to get. And when you're talking about being in the woodwind section or being in a wind player like that, and you only have, a couple oboes, 3 oboes or 2 oboes, and then you get a French horn that's subbing it, or an English horn that occasionally plays as a sub. If the piece calls for it, there's just not that many positions open. So my sister's husband, my brother-in-law, has one of his best friends has a son that plays in the Boston Symphony. I mean, one of the best orchestras. And he teaches, I think he teaches at NEC. He might teach at Boston Conservatory, but, he's having trouble making ends meet because of the pay, and it's really expensive to live in Boston. I don't know if he has kids or what, but he's thinking about going back to school. His dad is a doctor and would help him out and pay for it, but he's thinking about going back to school and getting a degree in business and maybe getting out of music. And that's a really sad state of affairs, that you can play in a professional orchestra in a major city and you still can't make ends meet, So when you're going to school, these are kind of all parts of these are all parts of the music business that's the kind of new emergence of the music business now that you really have to be an entrepreneur, and you can't get sucked into these music programs. A lot of the programs that don't have it's especially the recording and production programs. Those are the ones that are the difficult ones. It's one thing if you're going to school to become a player, and going to school is a great thing to become a player. If you have a performance degree or you're getting a music ed degree, but the things that just churn out all these people, where there's no music studios. So why put all these things out there? Put all these people out in the market that can't find work. So that's one of the reasons why I've done a few of these videos on the main channel, is because it's very difficult to make a living in the music business unless you're really able to figure out new ways to monetize things. There's just not a lot of the old models are not don't work the same. Just like the fact that people still get paid the same for gigs. If you did a GB gig, what we used to call them in Boston when I was in school are GB gigs. In New York, they'll call them club dates, I think, and Philly, they call them casuals. I forget what they would call them. But, what you made in the 80s is pretty much what you make now. And, okay, so here's Prince just said there's 8,430 pro photographers in Europe. 10,000 people are studying to be photographers. There you go. And then Brett just said, this is interesting because this is the other part of it. Brett says, GB, general business. Brett says the pressure to keep your chops in the classical world is high. So this is interesting. If you don't get an audition, let's say you get right out of college. So Dylan's oboe teacher quit her last year of Curtis because the job came up in Atlanta and she got it. That's what she told me. And she knows how hard these jobs, they just don't come up all the time. So she has to weigh, do I need to get my degree from Curtis, finish it, or, is there going to be another job that opens up? And she's got, you get into Curtis, you're one of the best players in the world, pretty much, you're one of the best players, and there's no tuition at Curtis, it's like Juilliard, except there's no tuition. There's tuition at Juilliard. But the pressure to keep up your chops afterward, take the job, leave the cannolis, right? The pressure to keep your chops up afterwards, so that in case you have to audition at any moment that a position comes up, and there's a certain repertoire that you need to have pretty much memorized. Any type of, it depends on what instrument you're playing too. It's a tremendous amount of pressure. So you always have to be practicing, and you might do this, in the meantime, you might have to go and pick up a college teaching gig somewhere. And then you're always on the lookout for an audition. And, there's a lot of pressure in these things. So, okay, there's a question though. What do you do? What's a good thing? How do you become an entrepreneur? Let's see here. Let me read Joe's question here. Are there too many musicians or not enough demand for highly trained players, in my opinion? If I was king for a day, how would I change the marketplace? That's a great question. Well, the marketplace is changing right now. There's market forces that are going on. There's new ways to monetize music that will affect things like YouTube. It will affect things like how videos are monetized here, but how much money people are able to make through streaming. That will eventually change, where people get compensated better for it. And depending on what happens with the internet, it's remains to be seen if people are paying for, particular websites a la carte. You never know what's going to happen. So, but one thing I do know is that there are, as somebody said, there's too many of these recording engineering majors out there for the jobs. Look, I employ two people, or at least one person, Michelle, I employ, and Aaron works with me on stuff. And they're both recent grads with production degrees from Berkeley. And they're both super talented. And honestly, if, Aaron is an incredibly good, he's an incredibly good musician, and he's a real thinker and doer. And he understands about being an entrepreneur. And he's only, however old Aaron is, 23 or something. He is a smart kid. And Michelle's incredibly gifted as a musician, and was incredible. I was incredibly lucky to find her, which is really through Aaron. But she has qualifications that I guarantee you most of the people coming out of Berkeley do not have. Her ability, her ear is it's not just her perfect pitch, but her ability to transcribe is unbelievably, it's pretty amazing. And her ability to, I was playing stuff in from the new Beato book to her, and immediately she was typing the stuff in on the keyboard faster than she would do it actually on a keyboard. She was typing it in on there. And I kept changing it. It's like, no, make it go like this. No, make it go like this. And 2 seconds changed. So, that is combining those two things, the ear and then the skill to put the stuff down. So we're almost, we're still a few months from the Beato book being done, but all the exercises in the back, which I've really rewritten a lot of them. It's going to be a really different book. It's going to be even better than it was. And so she types on the computer. So some of the stuff she just reads in. When I was doing the video on the Bach, the fugue video, I said to Michelle, I said, hey, I want you to play in all the subjects and answers to the entire first book of the Well-Tempered Clavier. I got to run out and go to Starbucks or so. Literally, by the time I get back, she pretty much had them all done. She just sight read them all into the computer, had them all labeled. And I said, hey, I want the starting note and the ending note of the subject, so I know what chord tone it's on. I want to know if it starts on the dominant. I want to know if it ends on the leading tone or what it ends on. I want to know, and she had that all done, all mapped out, everything in 20 minutes. She could read all the things. Now, she has an engineering degree and production degree from Berkeley, but really, what does that does that even play into anything? Why didn't I scan it? Because scanning doesn't work, Robert. It doesn't. There's no scanners that read. The note score that comes with Sibelius, none of that stuff works. Have I ever considered renting my studio? No. Ever a video on Ted Green? Not sure. It's kind of like doing a video on Ted. I'm not sure how much information is out there. I don't know if I, know enough background information about Ted to do a video on him, to be honest with you. I'd have to do some research. I've owned his books in the past, but that's a totally different thing than actually knowing anything about him. Optical character recognition doesn't really work. So yeah, so Dundo, some of the stuff that she does is she plays the examples on a MIDI keyboard and she sight reads in the Sibelius. But these are all skills that she had before she went to Berkeley. I don't know about, she uses Finale. She doesn't use Sibelius. I'm not sure if her skills on Finale, I know that she had to do projects on that, so that's probably a direct benefit. Aaron as well. That's one of the things that they needed to do at Berkeley, which is very, very helpful, is that they needed to have a notation system that they knew. And Aaron uses Sibelius and Michelle uses Finale, which is why I own both programs. Photoscore does not work, Robert. It's really incredibly inaccurate. It's slower to actually do it and to go back and correct it. I mean, it's not even close. It's not worth doing. Especially not worth doing when you have somebody that can just sight read the stuff in. So, it's saved me a tremendous amount of time. Anyways, if I could do a tutorial on Baroque guitar improvisation, well, there was no guitar during the Baroque era, so it'd probably have to be Baroque lute improvisation, and I don't have a lute and don't play the lute. But can I learn that by Christmas? Prince, you're talking about the Baroque lute improvisation. Double X. What's the difference between people having perfect pitch, like you said, Aiden, who has the best ear ever, makes his perfect pitch better than Michelle's perfect pitch? It's up. So Michelle has a phenomenally good ear, but the difference between someone like Aiden is that it's the most complex sounds are instantaneous. And he plays the stuff, orchestral pieces. Aiden's thing is, see, Aiden can technically play. He can hear anything. If he heard an Oscar Peterson line or that's easy for him. But if he heard anything, if he heard a Kenny Barron line or a Michael Brecker line or anything like that, Coltrane line, he'd play it at the tempo perfectly on one listening. Michelle could figure those things out. Yeah, of course she could figure these things. I mean, I can figure any of that stuff out. But Aiden is like, Aiden plays the stuff. Aiden would play it back, and then he would improvise on it, and he would play 100 different permutations of the same idea. So it just goes beyond. It's beyond the ability to do that. And Aiden would laugh when he's listened to it, and Aiden wouldn't say, "Wait, play that again for me." He would laugh and play it. So having that instantaneous ability like that, and Dylan, Dylan does the 12-note chords. It's just a different kind of thing. I mean, Dylan has had a lot more background in that than Michelle. I mean, Michelle's ear is one of the best I've seen. So, but it's super audiation. There you go. Quantum computer. Music is a language. It absolutely is a language. No question about that. I did an interview with for the San Francisco TV program yesterday that was interviewing me about Neural, about our app. And they were talking about Dylan. The woman that interviewed me had watched Dylan's videos and was asking me about that and how did I decide on the music to play him. And what's up, Eli? And I said I was curious to know if a baby listened to this particular kind of music, Aiden's improvisations, if it would sound normal to him, all those kind of sounds that he uses. And I didn't expect the results that I got from that. So do I know what Michelle did? Michelle's ear, Nicholas, has improved dramatically since she's been here because I work with her on her ear all the time. So Michelle has perfect pitch, but her ear has dramatically improved because she's never had to identify the types of sounds that I play, like the stuff I play for Dylan. But I've identified chords that are difficult for her. I have a running list actually that that I am using as reference material for my ear training course, which is one of the reasons that that I'm doing this with her, that I'm working with her on this, because it's really invaluable to see, because I have an idea as to what types of voicings can hide notes in them that are difficult for people like Michelle, whose ear has gotten dramatically better, but still, can be stumped on certain types of voicings. And it has to do, I think, with the overtone series and the spacing. It's the harmonics of the sounds and the spacing of the voicings that that I'm trying to see where's. I have my list of chords here in my notebook. That's why I'm looking at it. Has anyone seen Stanley Jordan lately? I saw Stanley Jordan this past summer. Where is it here? Michelle's excellent on rhythms too. Man. Start a record label, just do downloads, promote it here, do crowdfunding, CD release. Prince, honestly, I've thought about that. I've actually thought about that. So part of the, it's in my other notebook. That's where it is. It's not in this one. It's in my one that's not torn up. So part of my research in this, Hassan, is to, it's also, it's having Michelle here and having Dylan here, and having Aaron here, because Aaron's relative pitch is excellent. What's fascinating is that Aaron is really good at hearing sounds, modal sounds, things like that. He knows what kind of extensions are in chords really instantaneously, because his relative pitch is so good. And it's in a lot of ways it's the speed of it is really great, and that kind of thing can help you in improvisation. It can also help you in composition when you're going for a particular sound, and you can hear, what it is, what kind of sound it is, whether it's a certain melodic line that has, that's made up of particular intervals, or it's a modal sound, or it's a harmonic progression that you recognize, or it's it's a chord with extensions on it where it's a flat 9 sharp 5 sound, or whatever it might be. And being able to hear those things instantaneously is really important. If I'm playing on a gig with somebody and I hear, I'm playing on a 2-5-1 in E flat, and I hear on the B flat chord a 13 flat 9 sound, if the person comping plays that, my ear instantaneously knows that. And so those are the kind of things you need to know, and you need to be able to hear that sound, right? If I'm gonna, that's a 13 flat 9. That would be a B flat 13 flat 9. So that is that sound of that chord right there. And you should be able to recognize those things. All those upper extensions. My ear training course will when you master this, you're gonna be able to hear all those kind of things. It's not just going to be, melodic dictation. It's not just going to be recognizing intervals or chord types. It's going to be, recognizing extensions. It's going to be, you know, um, it's very, very involved the by the time that you get through it, you'll have this stuff mastered. Do I think that Nicholas says? Do I think that people hear things in different ways, such as within a mode relative to a tonic or intervals away from other notes? Absolutely. People hear things based on what their experience is. I mean, honestly, I think for jazz players, the fact that you jazz players that listen to music and play that listen to artists that have high information in their improvisations. I think that I think that's I think it's really helps at identifying those things. Well, especially, it's not just, minor chords are easy when they have the 11th, they have the minor 9, things like that. But it's when you get into dominant chords, they have alterations or triads over bass notes, recognizing how a major 7 sharp 5 chord sounds different than a 13 flat 9 or a Phrygian chord. If I have a B flat major with an A in the bass, okay, what that sounds like. The music industry, Joe says, the music industry is certainly not a pure competency hierarchy. The best, in fact, are rarely super famous. Example, Iden, exactly. Am I familiar with jazz duets? Very good, only 35,000 subs. I think I know that channel. I think I've looked at it a couple times. I can't remember. Will computers ever be able to compose good music, Dundo? Let's see. Let me think. I'm going to think into the future. If I say no, 100 years from now, if someone's watching this video, they might say, oh, Rick Beato, boy, he was clueless. I'm going to say probably. You'll probably have stuff like, man, I love that album. Oh, that was all computer generated. What? Come on, no way. Define good, exactly. To recognize a sharp 11, don't we need to hear the 7th and a 3rd below it? Well, if it's a sharp 11, then that would imply that there's a 7 in the chord, All hail our computer overlords. 100 years from now, a computer will be watching this. Scooby-Doo. There you go. That's more like it. Jimbo, you're a software guy who made a program that composes. It's hit and miss. Yeah. But, Gary Kasparov used to be able to beat a computer every time, and then it got to be where, computers could beat human beings every time, pretty much. If computers were able to write great music, would I find it that demoralizing? Would I find it demoralizing? No, I wouldn't find it demoralizing. No, not at all. 3 computers taking courses back to back over Coltrane tune. That would be hilarious. Your guitar playing sounds like a computer is playing it, Ian. Aren't we computers? If life is in fact a simulation. But will a computer have the stage presence of Little Richard? No. Of course not, obviously. So this is kind of that's an interesting question, though. It's really an interesting question. But human beings can do things with their minds and can think in ways that are difficult for people to program computers right now. All you have to do is feed all of Bach's and Mozart's into a deep learning algorithm. It would create good music. Well, it's interesting because I talk about why is it that computers can't interpret what they're hearing and write them correctly? For example, why can't you play a piece into a computer that's out of tempo and have it notate it? It's never going to notate it like the composer wants it notated, because you're not playing with a click track. A computer could interpret, for example, if you were playing one of the Chopin etudes from Opus 10, and a computer had 25 performances of the same one, and somebody played it, the computer would be able to interpret what it is if it had a frame of reference. But if it didn't know any of Chopin's music, it would never be able to put the right rhythms because it's not done to a click. There has to be a certain amount of interpretation of these things because Michelle was telling me today she was working on an example for the book, and she said, well, there's a pickup note, and what you have to do in finale, I don't get this, I don't know why, but she says finale you need to have a 1/4 bar to start. It's like, what? And then you go into 4/4. So she says, do you want me to put the time signature in? And I said, Michelle, how can a professional software program that does music notation not know how to handle a pickup? That can't be. There has to be something that you click on that if you're only using part of a measure as a pickup. Anyways, Tom says, art comes from a lifetime of experience. Robert, a putter needs a human body to experience as human. A putter. Brett, here's the thing. They will never compose Beethoven's Ninth, or in my life, they are already written, and they will never compose what you compose. Let them compose. Who cares? Exactly. Jay, you would need very fast floating point data arrays to be able to model the possible sample timing variances and quantitative. That sounds about right. Elliot, finale is idiotic. Thank you. I don't get that program at all. Steve I was the one that told me I needed to get finale, and I got finale. And he told me about these plugins that go with it. He says, oh, you can't use it without these plugins. And I forget who the guy is. It has all these mods for it that created all these workarounds for all the kind of the dumb stuff the program does. So I didn't know how to install it at the time. And then Aaron, when he came here, he knew how to install it. But when we went to the website to do it, the guy's website had been hacked, and we weren't able to get the software to install. So, but it fixed a lot of the problems that he had. All these workarounds for a lot of the problems that Finale has. I mean, it's really, really awful. Every time Michelle has to play a section of something, she has to compile it somehow. You can't just hit the space bar like you can in Pro Tools. So have I ever tried Opus Modus software? I have not tried it. No. A computer cannot predict imperfections. That's true. Anyway, so obviously human beings are the best at interpreting stuff. when I was doing the little Danny Elfman thing that was only whatever, up until the C sharp major chord, you know, I could notate that, but it would be so confusing. It was easier just to listen to it and play. If I had to think about how the bars would be divided up, because it has all these staggered melodies, I'm not sure how I would write it. If I would just write it in 4/4, and I mean, it was totally weird the way that it. Yeah, you had to just play it. If I was going to say, here's the score of what I wrote down that the orchestra's playing, I mean, I can hear all the parts, but whether it would look like the score that people were reading off of, I have no idea. Rob asked what library I use for the Danny Elfman. So I used some of Spitfire. It was kind of a mixed bag. The percussion stuff, the harp things I do in East West. The string stuff I do in I did in Spitfire, but I used Albion 1 for some of it. I have their chamber strings, which are good, and I have their regular strings from their orchestral pack, which I don't think are good, honestly. I don't think they sound good. So I really think that I really like the Albion 2 program, which I have not gotten to work on this computer for some weird reason. There's some of the samples of Spitfire, some of their virtual instruments are lame, the way that the installers don't work on them. Aaron couldn't get them working, and if Aaron can't get them working, then there's something wrong with them, because we could not get them installed. I have a number of instruments. I have the felt piano that doesn't work. I have their big hammer dulcimer that doesn't work. Albion 2 does not work on this computer. I cannot get it installed. So I have a number of things that I've bought that do not work on this computer. They work in there, but they don't work in here. Do I use action strings? I don't. I'm wondering if I tried it in Logic, honestly. Yeah, Ray, yes, on the Hackintosh. I'm curious, honestly. I've not tried it in Logic on this computer. It may well be that that there's Logic and Contact. Do those work well together? Because I honestly never do use that. Brett, are you the only person that has thumbs up like this video? You might be. Anyways, so yes, it does. Tom, are you saying yes, Logic and Contact work well together? Or Logic and Spitfire work well together? Tom, you do everything on Logic and send it to Pro Tools as audio files. Logic and Contact are quirky together. You know, honestly, I've never opened Logic on this computer. I had to do a video of opening Logic on this computer here, because I use it on there and that computer there, and I used it on my laptop. I have it on here, obviously, but I've never opened it. So I need to do it when Aaron is here, because he is he knows this stuff, and he knows Logic really well. Anyways, no Logic on the Hackintosh. No, I just Martin, I've not tried it. I've not opened it on there, so I don't know. Tom, you've had no problems with Logic and Contact. You have tons of sample libraries. I mean, I have. I like to use some of these sample libraries together, like Cinestrings. Anytime you have the two thumbs down are from Siskel and Ebert. Anytime you have lost my train of thought on that. With the Siskel and Ebert reference, that's old school now. Joe, are you actually your school's chess club coach? That's awesome. What's your rating? You must be a rated player for sure. My friend Paul, who's a great chess player, always says, we're always talking about memory in chess, and he goes, have you ever seen a grandmaster in chess that has Alzheimer's? I said, no. He goes, that's because there aren't any. Rob, yes, I was talking about Cinesamples and Spitfire. That's what I was talking about. A lot of times you'll have lines. You'll have certain sections of the orchestra that just will not speak, especially if you have a really dense orchestration, and you'll have to layer a different sample library that's just been done in a different room, or we'll have it just has different timbre because they're recorded differently with different microphones, different mic pre's, and things like that. So that's always an interesting it's always good to blend those things. I mean, look, I've recorded real strings with a full orchestra many times because of being a producer. I've recorded strings in LA with all session players at Capitol Studios. I've recorded the Seattle Symphony string section before. I've recorded many string quartets or had small string ensembles in the studio that I've recorded, and nothing is close to real string players. I'm sorry, I'm biased because I'm a string player. Snowflake, is that true? You have lung cancer? Is that actually true? That's I'm sorry if that's true. I hope that you have early stage lung cancer. Martha Argerich had lung cancer in the 90s, and she's one of the greatest pianists of all time. She's still out playing. And she had an experimental treatment and had half of one of her lungs removed. Doing great. She's smoking still. Did you just find out, Snowflake? That's really... my dad had lung cancer. Yeah, I think it's, it's very brave to share that. Yeah, that puts it all into perspective. All this is, your health is everything. Really, cancer is definitely treatable. When you see, every time I have many people in my family that have had cancer. My brother-in-law, my sister-in-law have had cancer. Both survived it. But health is the most important thing. Absolutely. If you don't have your health, then you know, it's really hard to do anything else. You gotta believe. You just gotta believe. Um, Eric, you're 14 years out. There you go. There you go. I'm sure there's plenty of people on here. I mean, between this and the other channel, and I honestly believe that music is incredibly therapeutic for is incredibly therapeutic. I think people that have really powerful minds can help you fight cancer. Attitude is really incredibly important. Sammy, 8 years out, congratulations. There you go. There you go. Wow. Fasting, Double X said fasting, you've read that fasting can be very helpful treating cancer. Fasting is good for health in general. Music helps with dementia. I had a guy reach out to me that was that did the that movie. I'm trying to think of the name of the movie now. It wasn't Woken Up. It was called he went in and played music for the people with Alzheimer's, and they immediately came to life. Any of you see that movie? It won some. I think it won a Sundance Award 2014. He wrote to me back when our app Neural came out, and was it wasn't Awakenings though. It wasn't that movie. No, it wasn't that one. I forget what it's called. But it was a different movie than that. This was a documentary. This guy went around to nursing homes and played people, that had music of their youth, and they immediately came back to life. People who forgot that music is the language of rooted in emotions. It's really an amazing documentary, but the guy wrote to me, is it called Alive? Alive Inside. Yeah, maybe that's it. Anyways, he thought that the idea of neural, he thought he was fascinated by it. He said it was the reverse of his movie, his documentary. I don't have cancer, no. It was not Sleepers, no. I think it was Alive Inside. I think that sounds right. I'll look it up because I went and watched the movie and it was absolutely fascinating. Those things are it's just remarkable what music can do. It's the hat. I'm freaking you guys out. It was interesting to see my dad. My dad had lung cancer, and to see how he faced that, how he faced it down. Alive Inside, I think that was it. And my dad he didn't flinch when he got told. My brother told me the story about it. I was living down here at the time, and and it was it was really interesting to see. Oh boy. You took me for more of a Chevy man. Well, I didn't have my Chevy hat here. Spider Mind. Rick, honest question. Love your stuff. How do you become a producer in today's world? I mean, really, honestly, to be a producer, you have to be a musician / writer / engineer / mixer to be a producer in today's world. Because so much of it, I mean, honestly, like just like in film scoring, you have to be guys that do film scoring now. You got to understand all these software programs. You just do. You got to be able to do mock-ups of things like that because no one has an imagination anymore. You can't tell someone, you can't be John Williams and you play the theme to, you see the video on YouTube, he's playing Steven Spielberg, the theme to E.T. Da, 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 da. He's playing it on the piano and Steven Spielberg's like, yeah, that's amazing. And Steven Spielberg knew, because John Williams had scored all these movies, that it was going to sound incredible once he scored it. But nowadays, you got to give them... you got to give them everything. And to be a producer, you got to be able to write. I mean, you got to be able to write, too. You got to be able to lyricist even nowadays to be a producer. Elliot says it, they're right. You have to wear all the hats, be a great musician. You have to be a great musician. You got to be a lyricist, too. Or you got to be able to recognize when lyrics aren't good and be able to know what... what lyrics need to be changed. That's a big thing. And Ford, fix or repair daily. Kinch, I get all students say want to be a producer until they find out the things you need to be a master of. I'll be honest with you. I have a nice studio here with decent gear because I was able to play parts that I could write. I played them on every instrument. If I needed bass, I played the bass. If I needed guitar, keyboards, drums, program drums, right string arrangements, right horn arrangements, I could do it all. Lyrics, I can write the melodies. I can rewrite their melodies. I can replay everyone's parts. If I couldn't do that, I can mix, I can engineer. If I couldn't do all that stuff, then I couldn't do that. How did I finance my studio, Dundo? I bought everything in it. That's how I financed it. I didn't finance it. I bought one thing at a time. I bought one piece of gear after another. I got one thing that I didn't pay for, which is this. That my old record label paid for. In a sense, I paid for it. Elliot, this is great. I got the college professors here. Oh, wait, so true. Students that say, I want to be a producer, my response is, well, you better get busy because you have a lot of work to do just to be average, let alone good. Exactly. Kinch, people have no idea how many years it takes to do all the stuff you just mentioned. I know. I mean, look, I'm almost 56. I started producing at 37. I started to learn to engineer at 37. But the one thing I didn't have to learn how to play all the instruments, number one. I didn't have to learn how to write parts because I was a composer at the time. I've been a composer and I've been a songwriter since the 70s. And I understood arrangements. So what I had to learn was how to record things and make them sound good, and how to mix things and make them sound good. And that's a Dundo. You sorry you brought You're German, so you thought finance means, oh, the money come from, now that I get loans. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, well, the money came from having successful records, honestly. I invested a lot of money from projects I did, really in the 2004, 2005 area. That was a big part of it for a lot of money. You know, you had to buy enough mic pre's to record 24 instruments. You had to buy enough microphones to record 24 instruments. And then I bought 10 drum sets. And I had 50 guitar amps here. I had everything. Because part of it back then, before the change really happened, you had to convince people to come to your studio. And you know what convinced them? Because I didn't want to go and work anywhere else. I wanted them to pay me all the money instead of paying $2,000 a day at a studio. So I had to entice people that were used to going to studios that were getting major label records with gear. And I said, oh, you don't need to bring any of your gear. Oh, I've got 10 drum sets. What do you play? You play Gretsch? I got a Gretsch kit. You play a Ludwig? I got a vintage Ludwig kit. Leedy? Oh, I got a Leedy kit. Slingerland? I got a Slingerland kit. You know, I mean, that was it. Pearl? I got a Pearl endorsement. Everything. That was the thing, is that people then saw my studio pictures and were like, oh, we're going there. He's got everything. He's got a pro studio. That's why I built the thing out to look like a studio. I mean, it does look like it. It is a studio. I mean, look, it's a studio, you know? So any piece of gear that a person has, somebody's like, oh, well, I want to bring my Mesa Boogie. Oh, don't worry, I've got a Mesa Boogie. I've got multiple Mesa Boogies. I've got a Mesa Boogie endorsement. What do you need? I got a dual rectifier, triple rectifier. I've got, I got Mesa cabs, all things. Marshalls, I got two JCM 800s. I've got JCM 2000. I have Marshall Super Lead Plexi. I've got, you play Fender? I've got, a Blackface Deluxe right over there from the 60s. Then mic pre's. I've got Neve mic pre's. I've got API mic pre's. I have Burl mic pre's. I've got, all that stuff. And you needed to have that at the time. I mean, I've sold a lot of the stuff. I mean, I don't have everything I had back then. I don't have 50 guitar amps anymore. Eventually, when it became, when we got to the point where people, around 2008, 2009, people began to become accustomed to going to home studios or, working in places. If a producer or somebody had a mixing room in their garage, something like that, because that, you start to see things pop up like that. Guys that couldn't have a dedicated guy, I have a friend that lives in LA. And he mixes major label records. He converted a garage because he can't afford to build a studio out there with the budgets now. But he has a console he's got a console that he mixes on, I mean, nowadays everybody mixes in the box anyways because everybody wants micro mixing. So that transition, it was tough. It was a huge capital outlay there, getting the studio going. So that's, look, all these libraries I'm talking about, you guys know, come on, you guys know how they're not cheap. When I've produced bands, if any of them tried to steal any gear, in all the time I was here, I had one person steal one thing. And it was a kid that was a drug addict that came here. This is years ago. And he stole my Tube Screamer from 1981, original one. Put it in his pocket when I walked out of the room. I mean, I never saw it again, and I assumed it was him. I mean, I knew it was him. That's the only thing ever, honestly. I mean, a couple of things have gotten taken by mistake, and the people send them back. TS808, exactly. My friend, Kinch says, my friend does a session at Capitol Records, only needs a nylon string. However, he has cartage to bring his racks and guitars. It's all how you look and how much gear. Exactly, there you go. That pedal I paid $300 for. I bought it from my friend Dave Honorato, who was going to be on next week. I knew the kid. He had an incredibly troubled life. What are you going to do? If I ever saw him again, though, I'd get it back. I would get it back. Anyways, all right. I'm good for tonight. You guys are awesome. Robert asked, do I ever discuss Nashville tuning? What string gauge you use? I use simply a gauge of 12 strings. And you take the, you take off the, you use the high strings for the E, A, D, and G. You guys are awesome. I'm going to go to the forum now for a minute. I'm going to sign off, head over to the forum. I haven't been over there today. Thank you all. What is micro mixing? Micro mixing is when you when somebody asks you to do 100 tweaks to a mix. That's micro mixing. Nari, have you been on there all night? Sneaky. Okay. You guys are awesome. I'm going to pause for a minute.